And we kind of landed on the ground, not really knowing what to expect. We heard a lot of rumors. We heard there was a lot of heavy fighting in the area that we were in, that Americans had been there a really long time. There was all kinds of rumors flying around. And you always kind of have a feeling of invincibility, at least I did, at least in the beginning. I thought I was a young kid that was bulletproof. And quickly realized that wasn't the case. Probably the hardest part of the deployment, though, was having to leave my wife at the airport. That was very difficult, and that took a little while to get over and get that out of my mind. But I did it, and she was supported. Leaving my family wasn't an easier stretch either, but there was 3,000 miles between us at that point. My wife I had to physically let go of and go off. When we arrived, we weren't sure what we were in for. To put it bluntly, it was a giant question mark. The area was a lot of wilderness. It was the home turf for the Taliban. It's where their roots were deep and strong. And we had a long fight ahead of us. And when we first landed, one of the first things I remember thinking was how hot it was. It was very dry. It was like someone holding a blow dryer next to your face. Real hot, real dry. And once we stayed on Kandahar Airfield for a little while, and then went off to our forward operating base from that. At the time it was called, I'm not sure if it's still that name. And we quickly realized that we were in for a hard fight against an enemy that was skilled and determined, and had been there a long time, for multiple generations have been fighting. Our biggest obstacle were definitely the orchards along the river. People think of Afghanistan as a very barren and mountainous region, which it definitely is. But in some spots where there's water and vegetation and fertile soil, it's very dense vegetation. A lot of pomegranates. That's one of their main produce over there. And the orchards were littered with mines, IEDs, ambushes, you name it. That was their turf, and that's where they liked to fight. And quickly on our first, all the old buffaloes from Charlie Company definitely remember that we always called it the 10-day mission. I can't remember what it was exactly called, but we were out there like 10 days. And that's when we first started taking some casualties. It was August 31st of 2009, when Private First Class Brochu, Specialist Welch, and Specialist Walsh were killed in orchards in the Arkansas River in Sophia, I believe that's how it's pronounced. All the villages looked the same, all mud hut type of environment, all kind of blended in together after a while. And that was our first taste of it. We never saw the enemy landmine. It's a difficult thing to go up against because it's put in the ground and you walk away and you can't really fight it. You can try and mitigate it, try and detect it. And we had some very talented engineers that were with us that did a fantastic job of doing the best they could to support us. Not too long after that, 27th of October, was definitely probably the heaviest day of the deployment. That was when my roommate, Dale, had gotten killed with, there was 7 other men with him. Sergeant First Class Gonzalez, Sergeant Jackson, Sergeant De La Rosa, Sergeant Williamson, Specialist Stanker, PFC Walls, and an Afghan interpreter named Muhammad. I also feel that those are brave men too that put a lot on the line to fight for their freedoms as well, and they were an invaluable asset in our efforts over there as well. That was a pretty wild day. Their striker had gotten hit by a massive bomb that was deep buried in the riverbed. It was easy to put large bombs in the soft soil, and they would be covered up. You couldn't really tell about it later on. I walked over that bomb probably a few times that day, and I remember it clear as a bell today. We were finished up our mission with the Canadians and the Afghan army. We were supporting them, kind of helping them do a perimeter, and the mission was I guess a success from that point, if you want to call it that. We started to leave. I was attached to my old platoon, first platoon, where most of my buddies were real familiar with those guys. And then second platoon, which Dale was in, was a little bit further down the river. They were going to go get picked up, so we could all kind of leave, get to our vehicles and leave at about the same time. Dale's truck drove past me. He was up in the hatch where he usually sat. I usually sat in the hatches too. Saw him, waved hello to him. Like we always made a point to hang out together whenever we could, whenever our teams were near each other. And I was the last man in our movement, so I can't remember if it was a platoon sergeant or my squad leader that had asked me and said, "Hey, is anybody behind you? You're supposed to be the last man. Make sure there's no one behind you." I stepped up onto the ramp of the striker, turned around just to verify that there was no one around me, and that's when we heard a loud woof, low, deep woof, and I saw a gray plume shoot up into the air, saw tires and axles and hunks of metal flying everywhere, and we hopped back into our trucks, we realized that we obviously just got hit by something pretty huge, and went back to where the vehicle was hit, and it was just chaos. You know, there was bodies everywhere. Everybody was firing. I wasn't sure what to do at first. Whether I was also trained as an EMT, and I was our team's medic, and I just made a quick decision that I needed to help put down some fire. While we had medics with us, I figured let them do their jobs initially, and I would stay and fight with the rest of my sniper team. And one of my best friends, Cameron, was in the striker next to me on the 240 machine gun. That's a big belt-fed machine gun, and 30 caliber. And he was really wailing away on that thing. So I felt that I had shot most of my ammo that I had shot some grenades, and went to go take off to see if I could help any of the wounded. I walked up pretty quickly and realized there wasn't much of anybody to help. The driver had surprisingly survived. He was very, very grievously wounded, but made it nonetheless. And his name was Robert Scherf, and he unfortunately was killed in a car accident a few months after we had gotten home in an odd turn of events. So everybody from that vehicle wound up dying in the end, but he made it that particular day. The day got a little bit more interesting. After the dust had kind of settled, we were starting to examine the area and figured out where the man who fired the bomb from was hiding, and followed his cord back to where he was. Thought we saw somebody in an orchard, or in some of the cannabis fields that were also pretty commonplace over there. And had the helicopters come in and try and help us. We weren't able to find anybody. Kind of a run-of-the-mill story where we chase a lot of ghosts sometimes. Sometimes we get them, sometimes we don't.